Hello everyone, this is Marshall Official. Welcome back to another video. I've been away for a couple of days, but I am back now, and we're going to be looking at all the recent updates from the front lines. As for off the battlefield, we don't have any major news from the last 24 hours. The only major news we really had from the last 24 hours was that Zelensky arrived at the summit of the willing that supports Ukraine, and Starmer said that they need to put more sanctions on Russia, so nothing major, and also apparently some American soldiers, 4 American soldiers ended up being killed in Lithuania during a training exercise because they accidentally drove their armored recovery vehicle into a swamp and sank it, and and all 4 of them ended up dead. So bit of a tragedy right there for the American army, but overall, no major news from off the front lines. Let's get right into the front lines. The major news that we do have coming from the front lines is not directly the different changes themselves, but that Zelensky is claiming that the Russian forces are preparing for a major offensive in Sumy and Kharkiv to capture the Kharkiv and Sumy regions. So, an all-out offensive to capture this part of Ukraine right here. Right there. That's what he's claiming, with some people even saying it could include the Chernihiv region as well. If Zelensky's claim is true, then there will of course be signs of this offensive coming. For Russian forces to launch such an offensive to capture the entire regions of Sumy and Kharkiv, they will need to bring up major amounts of reinforcements, hundreds of thousands of troops to capture this much ground, as well as thousands of tanks and all the equipment needed to launch such an offensive. So there will be signs that this is true. Zelensky is claiming it will be a spring offensive, and spring is right around the corner, so we will see very soon if Zelensky is telling the truth about this Russian offensive to completely wipe out the Ukrainian forces in Sumy and Kharkiv. So if Zelensky is telling the truth, we will see proof of this very soon. As for the Chernihiv region, some people are saying that the Russian offensive will also include the Chernihiv region as well, so it will be an all-out attack from all the way up here in the north down towards the main front line here in the south. The Chernihiv region is easily the least active out of all 3 of the border oblast regions north of the main front line to the south, those being Kharkiv, Sumy, and Chernihiv. Sumy is obvious because of the recently failed Ukrainian incursion, which ended, and the Russian forces are now slowly, actually already, kind of pushing their way into the Sumy region, but not majorly. And of course, in Kharkiv, we have this Russian incursion already, as well as a little piece up here, but this incursion did not last for very long either. Although this ground is stable, the Russian forces have not made any real advancements here in a very long time. So this offensive also went nowhere, just like the Ukrainians did, except they do still hold that territory. They were not pushed out, but it hasn't really gone anywhere though. But as for the Chernihiv region up here to the north, the Chernihiv region is up here. Nothing's happened here whatsoever. There has been no activity up in Chernihiv whatsoever. The Sumy, yep, I can see that. The Sumy region, yes. Kharkiv, sort of. But Chernihiv, no. There's just nothing. The only thing that's happened up here is this small Russian incursion where they captured the 3 villages right here: Kolos, Novoselivka, and Moravy up here in northern Chernihiv. But this incursion happened a long time ago, and nothing's happened since then. Russian forces, as far as we know, do still hold these 3 villages, and the Ukrainian forces are making no real effort to push them out of those 3 villages. But that's only because there's no threat. There's no point. Nothing's happening up here that would make this a threat to Ukraine. That's why it's still there, and Russian forces have not pulled out, but have also not made any attempt to push further in. So yes, this is here, but there's no attempt to push further outward. That's just not happening. It's all speculation as of right now, but we will see very soon if Zelensky's claim about an all-out Russian offensive is very true. If it is true, how it could play out, the Russian forces will launch an all-out attack starting across the border on a broad front line across the Sumy and Kharkiv regions, with the goals of capturing the entire regions, obviously. But to do so, they'll have to push along these highways right here. They'll also likely push to encircle the city of Sumy and then capture it before, of course, pushing on to capture the rest of the oblast. And Kharkiv would be the same thing, using the highways to quickly push in, as well as their already conquered territory, to continue to push across the border, and then encircle and capture the city of Kharkiv, and then capture the rest. If it is super successful, it could be paired with an all-out push to reach the Dnieper River over here. Again, all speculation for how it could play out if Russian forces are successful. We don't even know if it's going to happen at all. But rumor has it that Russian forces are preparing for an all-out offensive across Sumy and Kharkiv, maybe even Chernihiv. We shall see. Now, for the actual front line, we have quite a few changes from the last couple of days. Nothing too major, but we do have some changes. And Ukraine forces actually had a few good days here as well. Ukraine forces we'll look at, but the Ukraine forces made some gains as well. Russian forces crossed the border and captured a small piece of ground and pushed into the town of Vasilivka. Russian forces also captured more ground in Basivka, as well as over the border, where they captured more of this tree line right here. Russian forces also captured this tree line here to the south, and the Ukrainian forces are again slowly being pushed out of the last part of the Kursk Oblast. The Ukrainian forces, or the Russian forces, have obviously slowed down quite a lot, and they are no longer really pushing too hard anymore. It's just not necessary. They've already won. It doesn't really matter if they actually take the last piece of ground or not. Politically, it might be important to do so, but logically, it doesn't. It's not super vital that they must capture this last little piece right here. So they're not really trying that hard to do so, but they are still pushing. But the Ukrainian forces at this point only really hold Gogolevka and Oleshnia. They also captured this. They also captured the finished capturing the forest area right here. And Ukrainian forces. This is a map correction. Ukrainian forces actually do still control northern Guevo. Russian forces only captured southern Guevo. But this southern area is now actually larger than the northern one. But Russian forces are not putting as much pressure on the southern part. Okay, we have a Ukrainian incursion, another Ukrainian incursion, this time into the Belgrade region. However, this Ukrainian incursion has simply just gone nowhere. The best Ukraine's been able to do is capture the southern part of Demidovka, but this incursion has been here for days now, and it has simply not gone anywhere. The Ukrainian forces today brought in armored vehicles and tried to capture the towns of Popevka and Demidovka, but again, it was repelled and just simply did not go anywhere. This Ukrainian incursion was obviously just simply meant to be an annoyance to Russia. It was not meant to be a serious incursion like the Kherson incursion. If it was meant to be a serious incursion like Kherson, then it failed miserably. But this incursion is simply there so Ukraine can have more ground inside Russian territory. And again, it didn't. It simply did not really go anywhere. The only thing Ukraine really captured was supposedly they captured the town of Lipsy. But if we zoom in, there's not a single building. There's not even a road here. So I don't know why this is even here. But supposedly Ukraine captured this town, but there's no town. There's not even a road there, let alone a building. So no, Ukraine has not captured any villages. They've only captured tree lines and open field. The best that they have done is pushed into the town of Demidovka, but that's about it. Here on the Kharkiv front, Russian forces actually did make an advancement in the city of Volchansk. They captured this area right here. This is the first time we've seen any changes on this part of the front line in a very long time, in months, really. But again, it's nothing major. This front line still continues to remain the most dead of all the front lines. Supposedly, this will flare up very soon, according to Zelensky, but for now, it remains basically a dead front. So this is a fluke of that just happened to happen. Really, like this is not, this is not a sign that something bigger is coming, because again, this front has been dead for months. We will have to see if something real actually does happen in the near future. On the Oskil front line, no changes up here, but the Ukrainian forces actually made some pretty decent counterattacks. They had some good days here. The Ukrainian forces were able to recapture these tree lines here to the west, and here to the south of Sinkivki. Ukrainian forces pushed the Russian forces totally out of the town of Petropavlivka. Again, more big gains by the Ukrainians. Some good days. This is when Ukraine had like 3 good days over the last like week that I've been away. Ukraine forces had 3 days in a row where it was like they had some pretty good days. This is all part of that. They captured quite a big long chunk of ground right here. They pushed into the towns of Stepi and Kopanki. Ukrainian forces also captured the town of Nadia. Not a very big town. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4 buildings or something like that. But it's there. The Ukrainian forces did manage to capture that is true. Moving on further to the south, we have no changes from the Ternay/Liman front line. No changes here. Bilharivka and Seversk, no changes there. But in Chasiv Yar, we have 2 Russian gains. In the city itself, Russian forces were able to capture this part right here. And this is pretty significant because Russian forces are on the verge of if they can connect this together right here and form a connection, the Ukrainian forces will be encircled in central Chasiv Yar. And in this advancement, because they captured this, it is now getting difficult for the Ukrainians to hold this territory in Chasiv Yar. Russian forces also captured this down here. They captured this intersection right here. Nothing major, but that did also happen. On the Tourette's front line, we have quite a few changes. Russian forces captured this tree line right here, and in the city itself, they recaptured the rest of the town of Krinky, which is sort of not really part of Tourette's up here to the north. The Ukrainian forces made their own gain right here and captured these few city blocks right here to the west of the stadium. Russian forces regained some ground as well, recapturing these city blocks as well. The big news, the biggest Ukrainian gain by far, aside from their Belgrade incursion, but that's not, again, that's less important than this is. Ukrainian forces actually made a really big push and pretty much completely recaptured the towns of Sherebanivka and Novospatsky. Fighting is now happening in Leonidivka, but this is a big Ukrainian gain. You can see how big it is, so this is a pretty big deal. Russian forces at the height at their greatest extent, Russian forces had pushed up to about here. Now they're way down here. So this is a pretty significant gain by the Ukrainians. Russian forces had their own pretty big gain, however, down here to the south. You can see it's about the same size. In fact, this one's probably a little bit bigger. Russian forces captured the towns of Oleksandropil and Pantelemonovka. I definitely butchered that. I apologize, but these two villages were captured by Russia, so that's a pretty big deal. This part of the front right here between the Polk-Rolls front line and the Surets front line, this area right here in the middle has been pretty much silent for quite some time, but there is now activity here. Russian forces are probably now looking to end and destroy this pocket right here and probably try and push northward, but that is now happening. Russian forces made another small gain here to the west, where they captured this part of the town of Tarasivka, and this advancement also threatens Ukrainians sitting inside this pocket right here, where they pushed along this tree line and have split the Russian forces to the west and the east. But this has now been like that for quite some time now, that it is no longer a spearhead. It's just there, and so Russian forces pushing up here to the east and around their flanks will probably force the Ukrainians to give this territory up in the near future. On the immediate Polk-Rolls front line, we have no changes, but the Ukrainian forces did make two gains. They, for like the 17th time now, it's probably more like the 6th time, but it's a lot. For like the 6th time now, the Ukrainian forces have recaptured the northern part of Kotelina. Again, this has happened a lot of times now. They keep on pushing in. They keep on being pushed right back out. So, but again, I believe this is the 6th time now. This is now the 6th time Ukrainian forces have pushed into Kotelina, and they've captured the northern part of it right here. They also made an armored assault and pushed along this road and reached into the town of Solone, to the north of Uspanivka and Novovasilivka. This is a pretty good gain by the Ukrainians, pushing all the way into Solone. However, this front is very narrow and could be very easily destroyed. They will have to be careful about their flanks. But we shall see if anything comes of this. But as of right now, the Ukrainian forces have been able to push into Solone, but have not been able to secure their flanks. It's just a big long stretch straight to Solone. Russian forces made some pretty big gains. No villages, but they did push into the open field to the south of Zaporizhia and Shribne. This big tree line right here was captured. They pushing towards the town of Bodanivka, as well as these multiple tree lines and these open fields right here. There are no villages in this entire area, from here down to here. No villages. Everything in between is all just open fields and tree lines. So this could be Russia's goal, capturing these tree lines, pushing through this open field and these tree lines to make it to the next oblast over, the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. The Ukrainian forces made a small little gain here to the northwest of Andrivka, pushed the Russian forces back right here. We have no changes from this part of the front line over here, but north of Ligna near Vasily, Russian forces captured the rest of Dnipro and Arena. Sorry, I definitely butchered that as well. They already pretty much captured the village, but they now captured the area to the west of it. These forested areas right here to the west, east of Vasily, along the eastern side of the river. Russian forces now captured that. Russian forces also pushed into the town of Vilne Polne. They captured this area right there. The Ukrainian forces made an advancement and captured Novosilka, part of it, not all of it. They captured the western part of it. And the other advancement was way over here. Russian forces continued their small-scale offensive here in western Zaporizhia. They have now almost captured the entirety of Lobkove, almost captured the entirety of Stepove, and they have captured the entirety of Mali Sherbaki. And here in Sherbaki, they again captured almost all of it. So Mali Sherbaki has fallen, and Sherbaki, Stepove, and Lobkove look like they're going to fall very soon. And that is your entire map update. I apologize that this one seemed a little bit less interesting and a little bit rushed, but again, a lot of small changes that don't really mean a whole lot. The big changes happened around Tourette's and of course in Kursk. Other than that, it was mostly just very small changes that along the whole front line that didn't really change much. But obviously, I can't control that. That's how the front line moves. But those are all your updates from the last couple days. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys next time. Bye.